Okay, so this is about the nature of grief and loss. So this has emerged out of a conversation I had with someone who listened to not my last podcast, the one before, and made some really astute observations. And I thought, man, that's definitely worth exploring. And so I'm just sitting at my desk now, just having a normal day, and I'm just pausing to record a podcast. They can come at any time, you never know. So, the nature of grief and loss. And I'm pretty sure it's not going to, my perspective isn't going to be what you're expecting. So in my life, I haven't experienced a great deal of grief in terms of losing loved ones. I have lost close friends to tragedy, but I've lost my grandparents, but never anyone, a close family member or anything like that. Still have both my parents, but loss and grief, it doesn't have to be in relation to someone that you love dying. Loss is loss, and understanding the nature of loss and the benefits to nature of loss and therefore to you of loss, and embracing it and allowing it and even consciously willing it are largely unseen. And so I want to share my perspective. So many, many years ago, when I was when I was beginning to proactively develop my ideas and concepts about cooperative collaboration and bringing it into business and bringing it into even society, I entered a joint venture with someone and to develop some software. And it was to develop some software that was capable of collecting the shared intent of a group of people. So someone could initiate an idea or a concept, and they could seek the sponsorship of someone else in the group or the community. So they share their voice, seek the sponsorship of the community to sponsor that voice, invite people to contribute to enhance and evolve the concept or the brief, enable people to identify and expose obstacles and barriers, and it's basically a way to initiate an idea and engage a community around that idea, who are kind of self-validating the potential of that idea or concept. And it was based at the time. It was based on an ethos, a business ethos. It's really a business framework called holacracy or holacracy. I don't really know how to pronounce it. Which at the time was the closest thing I had ever seen to how to utilize the laws of nature to imbue into a human system or process, or like an organization or a company, and utilize it as a structure of governance. And so I wanted it to have a dual purpose. I wanted it to be able to be utilized within a business, and I wanted it to be able to be utilized for self-governing, whether in the community or even at a higher level in politics. And I actually started a political party. It was called Thrive. And the campaign was developed around developing policy based on this process. So the software platform was the centerpiece. and we were going to develop all of our policies using this method and utilizing the software. And that was going to be the pilot program, and we'd utilize that pilot program to, further enhance it and develop it, squash the bugs, etc. And so I poured my heart and soul into this. I absolutely poured my heart and soul into this. I had people around me, backing me, supporting me. I was going up and down the country, meeting people in a camper van. I got media training, from people who who proactively work with politicians, and, I was into it. And so what actually happened was, I was right in the middle of it, and I was getting updates from the person who was developing the software, and the software was actually a bolt-on to a platform that they were developing. It was like a plug-in thing. So the joint venture was just on the plug-in to go on the software platform. And I get progress updates. Yep, it's going well. Yep, we got this going, and we got this money coming in from the venture. There were certain aspects of it that were being monetized in certain ways, and I just blindly trusted this guy. And I as he was going along, I started to get twinges of, my intuition was pinging that, he seems that his tune's changing. He's saying different things. He said this to me last time, but now he's changed the strategy and he's doing this, and he's had to reprioritize, and it was always super vague. He was never able to say, listen, this has come up, this is what the issue is, this is what we're doing to overcome it. And my nature is that I'm hyper-focused, and you can probably aware that I go really deep to understand the essence of something, before I create something else. To avoid having to make assumptions, and then those assumptions being challenged and being proven to be wrong. I like to get to the truth as soon as possible. I could never get there with them. There was this invisible barrier. And so I had alarm bells ringing, but what did I do? I just kept going. I just kept going with it, kept doing the campaigning, kept drawing people into me. People were, a certain person left their job to come and join the campaign. Someone else moved to Auckland, who was going to be joining the team. All the stuff going on. People supporting with money, and, this whole thing going on. And of course, the investment in the software itself. And it got to the point where it's like, I was working with a marketing company, and we were going to be running the campaign out of their offices in Auckland. And it was getting to the point where it's like, okay, we need to start using the software. We need to understand it. We need to start, getting the people engaged with it so we can then turn it into policy. I was talking to policy developers and, doing my usual thing. And the software was never coming, and I could never get a straight answer. So I decided, okay, enough's enough. And I just charged in there one day and said, listen, what's going on? Where's this? What were the results of these campaigns that you were running to monetize it? And, what were the results, and how many customers did we get? And, we're expecting this money to be coming in that was going to be funding this. And, but meanwhile, I'd had these alarm bells going off that I'd been ignoring the whole time. And it's because I wanted to trust him so much. I wanted to believe that he could come through, but I ignored my intuition and just kept going. I didn't validate those feelings I was getting. I didn't listen to my inner compass and my inner guidance. And sure enough, it all came out that he hadn't even actually developed the software. That something happened and they had to pivot and change priorities, and with their own platform, the money that had been invested had been utilized to do that, or something along those lines. I mean, when he was telling me at that stage, I was just like, everything imploded in that moment. The campaign, the commercial venture, the money people would put in to back it, and everyone that was in behind Thrive, and it was the most colossal, epic catastrophe that I've ever experienced in terms of a sense of loss. And so fast forward to now, having redeemed myself, having made everyone whole that needed to be made whole because of that incident. What I learned about myself, about the nature of responsibility, but most importantly, self-trust. When that happened, I vowed to myself never to ignore my intuition and my own inner compass ever again. And, I was saying to my friend today, what I've gained in self-trust, not just because of that, but largely due to it. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I would not trade it for anything, because there's no freedom like receiving a thought or an inspiration or a vision or interpreting something in your environment, a vision, a thought, a feeling, and just having an unwavering trust of that feeling. There's nothing like it. The ability to be able to validate your own thoughts and your own perspective without having to convince anyone of it is the most. I wish I could convey the sense of freedom that comes with that. There's really nothing else you need in your life. If you can live your life from the state, because it's a state of self-reliance. You're entirely self-reliant. You're not needing an external authority to validate your perspective. You're not needing, you're not giving the responsibility for your personal choices and decisions to another person. You're not just taking someone else's perspective who does hold authority, or maybe you see them as an authority. You're not adopting their perspective because they seem credible or seem valid. The only way you live your life is based on your perspective of your interpretation of the entirety of the information that you're processing through all of your senses. And actually, just when I talk about, in my podcast, I talk about what is seen. When I say what is seen, what I'm actually meaning is all of the signals I'm interpreting that I'm processing. So when something is seen, it means it's been experienced and recognized. That's mainly through our two eyes, but someone who is blind can also see the essence of something, because it's about the understanding of it through how the other senses have engaged with that thing and through the interpretation. So what more potent force could there be than loss? And this is really what I want to communicate and share with you about the benefit of loss. And so before I go deeper into that, I want to just share my perspective about grief. So when we grieve, the typical thing is, if you lose a loved one, the pain really comes from, or the first thing that you do is you think about what you would have said to them. If I could have just said one more thing to them before they left, I wish we'd gone on one more holiday, or I wish we had started that business that we spoke about, or it seems like it's regret, but what's actually happening is you're reconciling the unrealized potential of that connection with that person. And so what grief really is, it's the loss of the unrealized potential that wasn't acted upon, that wasn't identified and expressed, where you could have realized much higher potential through creating or collaborating with that person when they were here. And you're actually mourning the loss of that potential that can now never be realized. And of course, that's totally valid. But let's look at I won't talk about loss and death, because it's unnecessarily heavy for this topic, because it's actually more about loss and grief. And because the fear of loss is so huge, it's debilitating for us. And understanding that when we hold such a deep fear of loss, your biology will start working with you if you have a really deep desire to avoid loss. And this is a huge problem and a huge challenge for people, because the way it manifests itself is through sabotage. Because if you're terrified of losing something that you care about, something that means something to you, if you're terrified of losing it, whether it's a business, a friend, a romantic partner, then your biology is actually trying to prevent you from having anything that you could care about. So if the source of your pain, and this is where the nature of mercy becomes involved as well, because the nature of mercy is, its essence is destruction. Mercy is seeking to destroy the perceived source of the pain. So if your lens of perception is saying that the source of my pain is loss or grief, and so my intention is to avoid grief. I want to avoid grief at any cost. I never want to experience that sense of loss ever again. You're holding that, your focus and your attention on never having to experience that pain again, the pain of loss. Then you better believe your biology is giving you a solution. And the solution is sabotage, because have you ever felt that experience of being so close to getting something that you want, and you reach out to grab it and you can't quite reach it? It never quite comes to fruition. Well, it's your biology working with you to prevent you from the pain of losing something you care about. Because if the fruition of it never comes, then there's nothing you're ever going to lose. So resistance to loss and grief is a huge cause of a lack of fulfillment in people's lives. And I think my perspective, my particular view on it is that this is probably a large reason why a lot of people slump into a depression after a massive loss and struggle to get out of it again. And so the only way to reconcile this is to truly understand the power of loss. And so I'll use my metaphor of the boat again, made of Lego. So we've got our boat. It's made of Lego blocks. The hull of the boat is black. The deck is red. The mast and the sail is white blocks. So if we're sailing our Lego boat and it crashes into a Lego iceberg, an iceberg we've made of Lego, tears the black hull off. We've lost and we managed to make it to shore. We've lost the black hull, but we can recreate that boat with a red hull using red blocks. So yes, we lost the hull, but all of a sudden there's an opportunity to recreate something new. And this really is the power of loss, is when you can imbue loss and like purposefully into your life, where you're proactively seeking to lose what is now obsolete in context of what it is you're wanting to recreate in your life. And, the classic barriers to allowing loss, when there's no grief or anything involved, is tradition, comfort, and of course, fear of the unknown comes in. I mean, there's lots of things that come into it, but when you're proactively seeking to lose anything that is an impediment to realizing higher potential of anything, yourself or anything that you're creating, it's the resistance to allowing something to be lost, allowing something to die, to become obsolete, so that you can recreate something new. And so the reason I tell you the story about my failed software joint venture, it was maybe 15 years ago now, is the triumph that enabled me to experience. If I had gone forward in that way into the political realm, and if that software platform had been successful, the software platform that I've built now, that not only encompasses this ethos, but at a much deeper level of understanding, it now incorporates that, my originally intended purpose of that, into an entire software platform that is capable of so much more of what that was. And imbued in everything that I'm creating is a deep focus and intention to trust myself, trust my instincts, and to relentlessly allow what is rendered obsolete to become obsolete and to die, whether it's a product I've invested a year into, whether it's an assumption I've made about how soon everything's going to happen, about the date that it's going to be ready to go live. If a truth emerges that renders something obsolete, I allow that loss, and immediately I have no attachment to how much time, energy, investment was made into that thing that's being lost, because I understand that it's making way for something new to be recreated. And that is the essence of this software platform that we've built, is that we've built it so that all of the assumptions that you've had to make to get you to the point where you're actually launching a product or a business or a service, where all of those assumptions you've had to make, you have to make assumptions when you're creating something new. You've had to assume things about your customer, about your market, about your product, your brand, your language. You have to make assumptions, which is a guess. And so the essence really of the powerhouse platform that we built is that it's the easiest way I could conceive of challenging every assumption you have to make and allowing the failures, the inevitable failures that have to come, so that those assumptions can be challenged and the truth emerges, and then you adapt to that truth. In each moment, allowing the loss of what's rendered obsolete. My assumption about this is now obsolete, which means that I can now express the language in this way, which means that the business model needs to alter in this way, which means that this feature has to be tweaked in this way, which means that the user experience has to be simpler, which means that the onboarding experience has to be more in-depth, which means that then I need to educate my potential customers more before attempting to convert them into customers. It's all a process of the seeking of failure until the truth emerges, and then you're working with reality. Loss is one of the most potent forces of nature in context of evolution. Whether it be the evolution of a software platform or your personal evolution, the sooner that you're willing and prepared to allow a perspective that you're holding to be rendered obsolete by the emerging truth of an experience you're having now, the faster you evolve. But how attached are you to your perspectives? How attached are you to your truth as it is now? How prepared and willing are you to let go of the perspectives that this podcast you're listening to is challenging about what you know now? Is there a part of you, in the same way with me, when I had the horrendous loss with the software platform, where my inner compass and my inner guidance was telling me something and I wasn't listening? Can you feel the truth of this podcast, and yet the perspectives that it's challenging within you, you can't let go of them, or you don't want to? Why not? What could happen if you allowed yourself to surrender to the truth that you can feel inside you as you're listening? Now, this isn't me seeking to invalidate your perspective, but this is an example of how it may be, you may be experiencing listening to it right now. Your perspective is just what it is now. You've got to allow it to evolve. In every moment, you've got to be prepared to lose your perspective, the entirety of it, in each moment, in order to evolve in the way that you truly want to. And the very definition of thriving, the essence of it means to vigorously grow and expand. And so understanding that loss is the essential component it's the fulcrum of expansion. It's literally the fulcrum of expansion. I am now allowing this to be lost so that I can become this. And, once you really step into a place where you can detach from loss and allow it and proactively seek it and hold it as your truth for as long as it is true, and then ruthlessly let go of it the moment it becomes obsolete, allow it to die. Allow it to be obsolete so that you can become more. So, grief. In summary, so I had to convey all of that to give you some context for what I'm going to say now, and that is that grief, being that it's the loss of unrealized potential. That unrealized potential is only unrealized because of what you did not choose to let go of. It's only unrealized because of what you are not allowing to be lost now. Whether it's a perspective, whether it's your pride, some kind of feud that you had with the person who's passed away that you couldn't let go of. You didn't allow it to die. You didn't allow it to become obsolete. An emotion, a decision to be stoic, conditions you placed upon connecting with them, or aspects of their nature that you couldn't accept. You wanted them to change. There could be so many different things that you were not prepared to let go of in order to enable that potential to be realized. And I can share with you right now the most common one, the thing that we won't let go of, is that we will not bare our soul, reveal what we truly want. I actually really wanted to go on another holiday with you with this person before they passed away. I actually really wanted them to know how much I loved them, but I never said it. You can let go of it now before you experience the loss of it. And when you do eventually experience that loss, it won't feel like a loss because you realize the potential of what was there now. Or you were committed to it. You were in the process of it. You were allowing it to unfold. You were getting out of the way of it becoming more. And you were perpetually enabling it to realize even higher potential than what you could see. So loss and grief. Loss being one of the most potent forces of nature, and it being the fulcrum of expansion. And grief being the unrealized potential when we refuse to allow ourselves to experience loss of a perspective or anything else. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to get back to work now. That was a nice interlude for my day, and I hope you enjoyed it. Okay, that is it for now for the nature of grief and loss. Catch you soon.